Welcome to Reading with Mrs. Cox. Today we're going over the story, The Tragedy of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Let's begin. In November of 1975, the freight ship Edmund Fitzgerald ran into a bad storm on one of the Great Lakes. That's up in Michigan, by the way. The Edmund Fitzgerald, that's the name of the boat, was built in Detroit, Michigan. It was launched in June of 1958. It was the largest freighter on the Great Lakes at that time. Freighter is another word for a very large boat or ship. The ship was as long as 2 football fields. On the afternoon of November 9th, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald sailed into Lake Superior. It was loaded with a full cargo and headed for Detroit. The trip would take just 3 days. Captain Ernest McSorley and his 28 crew members had little reason to fear for their safety. The ship soon made contact with the Arthur Anderson. Its captain was Jesse B. Cooper. The two captains decided to guide their ships together across the lake. A major storm was coming in. The wind was blowing fast on Lake Superior. During the day of November 10th, the storm grew more dangerous. By early evening, the waves were 25 feet high. McSorley, remember that's one of the captains, radioed to Cooper, the other captain, that giant waves had knocked out instruments on the deck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. At 7:10 p.m., Cooper asked the Fitzgerald's captain how the ship was doing, and McSorley answered, "We're holding our own." But minutes later, the ship sank. No one ever heard from the Edmund Fitzgerald again. Days later, a search plane found the wreck. It was lying on the lake's bottom, 530 feet under the water. It had broken in half. For months, people studied the shipwreck. Some thought that the ship had hit a bump close to shore, called a shoal, that damaged its bottoms. Others believed that the wave water had flooded the ship's interior from the openings on the deck. Evidence found later by divers showed that the ship had sunk very quickly and broken into 2 parts when it hit the bottom. People believed the wave water idea, thought that it was such a rapid sinking confirmed their view of what happened. What everyone agreed on was that 29 lives were lost on that terrible night. Here is a table showing name, the Edmund Fitzgerald, the name of the ship. The length of the ship was 729 feet. It was launched on June 8th, 1958, and the speed means it could go 14 knots. That is a term for how fast it can go on the water. Maiden voyage means the first time it ever sailed was September 24th, 1958. Crew, 29 people. Number 13. On what date was the Edmund Fitzgerald launched? A. November 10th, 1975. B. September 24th, 1958. C. June 8th, 1958. Or D. November 9th, 1975. Number 14. What was the length of the Edmund Fitzgerald? Look back over the table and see which one of these numbers match up. F. 729 feet. G. 1,975 feet. H. 625 feet. Or J. 530 feet. Number 15. What was the maximum speed the Edmund Fitzgerald could reach? A. 29 knots. B. 729 knots. C. 14 knots. Or D. 530 knots. Number 16. How old a ship was the Edmund Fitzgerald when it sank? I think this is supposed to say how old was the ship, the Edmund Fitzgerald, when it sank. F. 10 years old. G. 13 years old. H, 17 years old, or J, 20 years old. You're going to have to do some math by looking at the numbers on the previous page. Number 17, The Edmund Fitzgerald went under the waves at 5:30 p.m., B, 7:10 p.m., or C, minutes after 7:10 p.m., or D, just after midnight. Go through the story and pay special attention to the time. Number 18, which of the following statements about the Edmund Fitzgerald is correct? F, only a few of the crew members were lost in the tragedy. G, all 29 crew members died when the ship sank. H, the captain of the ship was the only crew member to have died. Or J, none of the crew members died when the ship sank. Read through the story again and see what you can find. Number 19, in which lake did the Edmund Fitzgerald sink? A, Lake Superior, B, Lake Michigan, C, Lake Erie, or D, the Great Lake. Number 20, which detail does not contribute to the main idea of the passage? F, the wind was blowing fast on Lake Superior. G, the two captains decided to guide their ships together across the rough water. Or H, the ship was as long as 2 football fields. Or J, giant waves knocked out the instruments on the deck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Thank you. Make sure your name's on your paper.